Alrighty. I'm Evan Sappington, and I'm here with my partner, Ethan Christopher. And the current event we'll be discussing in our presentation today is the current NFL gambling policy and how it is affecting the world of football. I'm going to get us started here with a brief overview with what you can expect us to cover today. Starting with the groundwork of gambling in the NFL and who influences it, we're going to address how the gambling policies have changed from what they used to be and how these policies affect the league and its players. Then we're going to take a glance at what the future may have in store.
All right. So when it comes to the history of gambling and how it kind of got planted in the NFL, many trace it back to the early team owners back in the 40s and the 50s. Um, Many of the owners would either own racetracks or participate in horse race betting, and they would use those winnings to buy their teams and to make purchases for their teams. So that was really the first instance in how it got planted in the NFL. The first run-in with like player commissioner was back in 1963. Pete Rozelle, the commissioner at the time, found and suspended Paul Hornung of the Green Bay Packers for betting on NFL games. He'd been suspended multiple times and asked to stop, but he never did and just kept racking up the suspensions. Um, then the first real run-in with owners again came up in 1999. The league passed a policy for stakeholders and owners that if they were found betting on sports, that they would either lose their profit or a percentage of their shares of the team. You can go to the next one. All right. And so kind of the effect on the league, this has kind of been more popular and seen more in the recent years, but over the past 3 years, we've had multiple players suspended, big names suspended. So that affects, obviously their team. They're without some of their best players, and those players don't get to play. That affects them and their family. And also the fans can come to a game and maybe be without seeing some of their favorite players or some of the players they enjoy to watch. Um, this also led to the league taking a stand, and we'll cover it on the next slide, that they came up with a new policy and started to implement some stricter rules. So, like I said, the league came up with a new policy. This came to life late September, early October this year. With all the recent suspensions and run-ins with players, they decided to kind of update their policies and make it a little bit more harsh and more strong. So starting off with betting on your own team, this would result in a 2-year suspension. So that'd be like Patrick Mahomes betting on the Chiefs to win a game or something like that. He would be suspended for 2 years. Um, Moving on, betting on other NFL games. So a game outside of your team will be a 1-year suspension. Um, and then kind of a newer one, non-NFL sports. It's okay to bet on, but once you're doing it and caught doing it in a team facility, that will result in a 2-game suspension. And then as a result of this new policy and these new rule changes, players that had been suspended for this current year were reinstated and able to join their team again and start practicing and playing again. And then now we're going to get into some player examples, some of the bigger names. And I'll start with Calvin Ridley. He's there on the left side of your screen. Um, he was an Atlanta Falcon in 2021. He was during the second half of the season, kind of taking a break from the team for some injury reasons and some mental health. So he missed that kind of second half of the year. And then later, about a month after the Super Bowl in March, the league found him to be betting on Atlanta Falcon games. So in March of 2022, he was suspended, and it was decided that he would miss that entire 2022 season. Many thought that suspension was rather harsh with some of the other things going on in the league. but he served his suspension and was actually traded mid mid-season to the Jaguars, continued his suspension, and is currently playing now for the Jaguars.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm kind of going to pick up with our guy number 9 here on the right. On Friday, April 21st of 2023, the NFL suspended 5 active players. The biggest of these 5 probably being Jameson Williams here, who was a star wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. He was suspended for 6 games on the account of gambling, but only sat for 5 of those after the commissioner appealed his suspension, which allowed him to come back a game early. All righty. So to finally come full circle, let's talk about the future of the greatest sport in the world and its gambling policy. While the NFL discourages any bet taken by a player on an NFL game or in a team facility, the league still promotes and completely tolerates bets outside the NFL being placed through their official sportsbooks. The NFL has also publicly stated that they will continue to analyze and amend their policy to ensure ethical fairness and transparency, as well as making sure violators of this policy are duly punished. Thank you guys. Thank you all for listening. Can't wait to read all of your questions and feedback.